Hello everyone, welcome to Business Data Warehousing, week number 3. I am sharing with you the Blackboard, week number 3 layout. And what I want to do today is to go over the material for this week, particularly the data quality, the governance, and dimensional modeling. Just as usual, here's a list of objectives. Here's a learning material that you can refer to. I try to be comprehensive in terms of resources. And there are 3 assignments, as I implied in mentioning those data quality and stuff. So here's a discussion board, a question for data quality. Here's another discussion board assignment for data governance. And here, the last one is a Q&A based on the reading. If you download the lesson plan week number 3 from here, this is what you should get. And so what I'm going to do is to kind of go over them with you and talk about what it is that you need to do. So the first question, basically I'm going to go through the 3 assignments that I mentioned. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you can see it better. So the first question about the data quality. And basically I'd like you to read some pages from the textbook. It's a case study on page 252 and forward. Answer some basic questions about it. What aspect of the case study stand out to you and why? And do you agree with the suggestions listed there and why not? Here's some other resources that you can read up. But let me talk a little bit about the topic so you have an idea. Some of you who may have worked in IT or work with IT or a data management system already know, we don't need to talk about data quality. But it becomes very important, and we don't take it, we take it for granted that it should be what it is. But when people demand that data to be accurate and consistent, which I think everybody does, but it is not explicitly configured or managed. And so people notice that data becomes an issue when certain things happen. And I'll give you an example. It becomes an issue when a company or organization change a system from one to another, or they convert the data from one system to another. If they change an enterprise system or something. For example, Lewis University is currently using Banner, Ellucian Banner product as a enterprise system. They did not use that from the very many years ago. They started maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And so when they did that, they needed to convert the data. And let's say a Banner system or school is wanting to change from their system to a Workday system. Then they need to reconfigure, they need to convert the data, and it becomes a long and arduous task. And people begin to ask, well, this data isn't so accurate when we convert it. Well, this is not very consistent. And so people spend a lot of time maybe behind the work scene, and it becomes a lot of work. And one of the questions that it becomes when they try to notice and try to fix it is who really owns the data, right? And because the data owner should be the one who's fixing it, right? Who has the right to fix it. And there's also a question about how far back do we need to keep them, and keep them maybe accurately, or do we keep them all of the different conflicting data separately? And so it becomes a really issue. So take a look at the case study as a business analytics major or related major. You do need to know about them, even though you may not be exactly in the IT, right? And it does lead into the question of data governance. And so a lot of organizations, including schools, begin to have a committee or governance for a data. They will begin to form a committee to talk about how are we going to manage this data, right? And it is usually comprised of different stake owners, different owners of the data, uh, and they get together on a regular basis, and then they discuss. They discuss different kinds of data, maybe the current data, historical data, and even the future data as to how are we going to format this data. An example would be, uh, you know, Lewis University, address, or are we going to use a number, or are we going to use a word, ONE, as opposed to number one? That it does make a difference, and so for consistency and reporting and stuff. So uh, there is it is important to have a data governance, and it is important to have a functioning and effective data governance. But not all organizations have it, because it does use resources, time, and energy and stuff. So they don't always make it happen, and even if they do, they don't seem to be functioning very well. And if you ever attended a data governance, it is typically, not always, typically a very dry, uh, boring at times for the people who are attending, because who gets excited about these things? Only those who are really impacted by it, right? And so I'd like you to answer some of those questions that are posted in the discussion board, but do take a look at the textbook and um, the links that I gave to you. The third question that I'm asking is a question about dimensional modeling Q&A. So look at this is not the textbook, but a reference book, a Data Warehousing Fundamentals, Chapter 10 and 11. This one happens to be Chapter 11. There is a Chapter 10 here, and there are a few other links that I gave it to you. But after reading that, answer those basic questions that I put up. What is a dimensional modeling, and so on and so forth. It is related, but not exactly how the data management, particularly the SQL Server relational database, is set up. So I think it'll be important for you to kind of have an idea. Here's a little bit of background that I'd like you to read up, and some references here. But and I'll come back to this here, but maybe I'll just mention it here. So, like the relational database, SQL Server, it is made up of tables, but these tables are named differently. As you can see, it is more of a star, snowflake, or star, that kind of format, rather than a sequential or linear, like one-to-one and stuff like that, right? And the way they're related is a little bit different, and the way they are named is also different. These tables are named with a preceding word of dim or the fact. So this is a date table, this is a store table, product table, and this is sales table. These tables they start with the dim because there's a dimension table. And the one in the middle is a fact table because it's the fact that we want to keep track. And these dimensions are tables that support the idea or some context about this, the fact table. So I'll come back, and here's another view of how that looks like. But it may be helpful to know a little bit about the background. So when we design a data warehousing or any other database, there is a logical a design and a physical design, right? So in terms of the logical design, there are different ways of doing this. But for the typical data warehousing, we have this concept of using a fact table and dimension tables to organize the tables. And the fact table is some sort of measurement, and because it is a business data warehousing, it is a business process measurement. Typically, it has something to do with money, because for a business organization, it is mainly concerned about the profit and the revenue and expenses and that sort of thing. So you don't particularly care about the locations or let's say what date it is. You are concerned ultimately at these facts about the monetary things, right? And of course, and so essentially it is this thing, and we would call it a fact table. But they are to be related or arranged or contexted by other tables or things that we will call them dimensions, right? And they're used to, they're tables arranged or created by the times and the location and things like that, right? So we may want to filter or group and sort by week or some sort of time type of thing, or location. So we want to be asking questions about how much of profit did we make in the last week for a particular location or all the locations. See how that goes, right? So this is the logical arrangement that we want to use, and so we use the fact tables related to the dimensions. But these tables have to be realized and actually set up, and therefore we talk about the physical design. And when we use and we'll use a SQL Server or whatever a database management that we want to use, and we are going to use a snowflake design technique, right? So that's the backdrop of this dimensional modeling that I'd like you to read about, and there are a few other funny questions that I threw in there as well. So that's what I wanted to cover for this week. Let me go back to the Blackboard here. So here's some learning material that I'm put up here for you. I will update the lecture video once it gets processed, and update the lesson plan accordingly. Look forward to working with you this week and receiving your work, and have a good week. Take care. Bye-bye.